Shalom, good people. I hope everyone is well this morning. Pray that the Lord is blessing you. You're already blessed, but I pray that He's giving you real time, right now, access to things, favor, abundance. I'm just praying for you. I just came on real quick because I wanted to talk about accuracy in uprooting. For those of you who've been following any of the teachings that I've been doing for the last few months, whenever I jump on, I've been stressing training that's needed. Grace King, what's happening? I've been stressing training that's needed for prophetic people, novice prophets, budding prophets, and learning how to flow in accuracy, learning how to flow and to avoid the pitfalls of growing up prophetically in error. Because there's so many things that I've seen and so many things that I've done learning in the prophetic that I wish I had somebody close up to say, nah, don't go that way, go this way. So I'm just sharing. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today for a quick moment is accuracy when we're uprooting. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when prophets, prophetic people see something that's going on wrong, something that's not right with an individual or with a situation, they like to go back and blame the institution that person comes from. Just say, for instance, I know one time I was real hard on if somebody was doing something real stupid, then I would blame the church that they went to. And I would say, see, that's because y'all not getting no teaching over there. That's because y'all not, getting the word. And I would blame, thinking that I'm right, self-righteous, I would blame the institution for the lack of wisdom or maturity that the person walked in. But the Lord has delivered me from that, because I've come to realize that you can be in a good institution, you could be hearing the word, it can be rightly divided, the person can be on point, the leader can be on point, the church can be on point, but the individuals within the church, the individuals themselves, a lot of times can stray off from what the vision is, or stray off from what the teachings are, and stray off from what they're supposed to be on. Now, I can carry that over to the extreme. I can even carry that over into Islam, or carry that over into any kind of cult. And though I don't agree with those systems, and though I know that they teach false doctrine, and though I know that they're not right, you can't blame everything that those agents or those representatives of those institutions, you can't blame everything on the institution. So people have to take on personal responsibility and be accountable for their own actions. It could be nothing wrong with the teaching of a certain denomination. It could be nothing wrong with the teaching there. It could be nothing wrong with the worship experience, whatever. It could just be that person is carnal. It could just be that person hasn't plugged in or really hasn't been a part of the discipleship plan in that ministry. And so for you to blame the institution, it shows your lack of prophetic training. And we like to call things, religion. We like to say these things like this, and I say it too. But we like to say, tradition and religion. But it may not always be the Baptists. It may not be because they're Baptists. That's the problem. It may not be because they're Methodists. That's the problem. What I've been doing more recently is I've been going to different worship ministries, different local fellowships of different denominations, and just seeing what's going on in the culture of the faith communities. And though there are a lot of stuff that I would not do, there are a lot of stuff that I don't really get with, I could see where somebody could grow and be disciplined and be built up in the faith in those places. So it makes me kind of be more cautious to blame the institution for individuals who have not taken it upon themselves to grow and mature in the faith. So the word, like I went to this Methodist church, and the word that was being spoken was on point. The preacher was preaching the truth. He was preaching the word. Now, he had some hoop, but he also had some substance too. So he was preaching the word. It was on point. And even though, some of them like to wear the little white, the white dresses and whatever, that's not the thing that keeps people in bondage, because some people like to do that. In other words, nobody's making them wear that. Some people just like that look. And there could be people who are growing up in the faith, learning the disciplines of the faith, and also learning how to love the Lord in an all-white dress with a white little dolly or whatever on their head. So that in and of itself is not the thing that puts them in bondage. Now, if they try to say that everyone else needs to wear this in order to be right with God, then that's bondage. But the fact that they like to wear that, the fact that they may subjugate themselves, the women might say, we don't want to wear, or we shouldn't, for us, we're not going to wear pants, we're going to wear dresses. That in and of itself is not bondage, because maybe they like to wear dresses. Now, I know I'm saying this, and this might sound contrary to what you might regularly hear me say when I talk about liberation and coming out of bondage and vain tradition. But for some people, it works for them. So that which is bondage is that which puts us into a mentality of slavery, and we can't walk in freedom to do what it is that the Lord wants us to do. But if they're custom, then see, every denomination, every faith community has its own custom and culture. And if you're part of a denomination, there's a greater culture that's a part of that. Some people flourish in those environments. They grew up in those environments. They saw their grandmothers be faithful in that environment. They saw their deacons be faithful in that environment. And they said when they get back with Christ, they're going to become a deacon, a Baptist deacon. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is not with associations with denominations. That's not the problem. The problem is when people supposedly represent organizations or denominations. They're supposed to be representing the ideals of those institutions, but yet they misrepresent them and do the opposite of what the ideal, what they aspire to. So then when we look at somebody who's slipping and, sneaking around deacon or elder or pastor or whatever, when you look at that, that really sheds bad light on the whole institution. And then you blame the institution for producing that kind of product. But, people have to take personal responsibility. We have to take personal responsibility. We like to do that. We like to blame other people for stuff. I'm not, getting fed, or I'm not getting the word that I need to get, or the people didn't call me and they didn't check up on me. We can have a whole list of reasons why we are not responsible for our own personal growth. But yet when it comes to our work, when it comes to any other arena in life, as adults especially, we take responsibility for our own work. We take responsibility for the fact that I got to put food on the table. I got to make sure the light bill is paid, the water bill is paid, the rent is paid, the mortgage, whatever. So we take responsibility for that. But as believers, then we want to pull on that reference of, I'm just a babe, or, I'm just new to this thing. I'm new to the church. Okay, well, take responsibility. If they have a discipleship class, go to it. If they have a something that edifies you, a counseling class, go to it. If they have a deliverance class, something, go to it. If it's going to teach them and edify them and build them up, go to what you need, get what you need, just like you would get what you need in the community, just like you would get what you need in the business sector. If you see a pothole in the road, on the street, that pothole is going to stay there until somebody calls whoever they need to call to get it filled. Right? You see a dead animal in the middle of the street. That's going to stay there until somebody takes their civic duty seriously and says, it's my responsibility to either move this animal or call somebody so it can be moved, because it's interfering with the public, with the safety. So we take responsibility in carnal things, but we don't take responsibility in our spiritual walk to make sure that the entire community is taken care of. Then we blame the institution as if it is their bylaws that make them evil, as if it is their way of dress that makes them evil, as if it is their programs that make them evil. No, what it is that people half-heartedly commit to stuff. People join stuff and are not fully committed to it, and therefore they make the whole thing look bad because they don't do their part. Then we look at the Methodists, the Baptists, the whatever, and we say, nah, it's not the institution. It's not that. It's because if it's not working for you, leave out of that and go somewhere else. But a lot of times, this is what happens. This happens so often. What happens is we'll go to a church or go and join some organization and do something, and if it's not working, we'll stay there and complain about it not working instead of go to the place where it optimizes what we're trying to do, where it maximizes our potential, and then flourish there. But see, that's because people like to go to places and hide. Let me go to this 500 member church, 1,000 member church, 2,000 member church, and I can hide and not have any kind of accountability or be responsible. But that's not on the institution. You know, if they're so big that they don't love. You know, I want to be a part of a small church because they notice you when you're gone and they love. No, it's not about the fact that they're big that they love. It's about the fact that you went there to hide. Right? Because when we really are serious about our growth, then whether it's a big church or a small church, I'm going to plug in and get in where I fit in. Now, I'm using church as an example, but that could be anything. That could be anything. Whatever I'm a part of, if I'm going to be a part of it, I'm a partner in it. And so therefore, I have to share weight of responsibility, because that's going to show the glory of what I'm a part of. And it reflects who I am. So as a prophetic person, I'm bringing it full circle now. As a prophetic person, stop blaming institutions because of their individuals. Stop blaming the institution because of the individual themselves. Let's deal with personal responsibility. Let's deal with the fact that you as an individual, you're not even representing, now I'm dealing with the false gods now, you're not even representing your own false god well. You're not even representing Islam well. But guess what? Don't be so quick to recruit people who don't even represent their own faith well. I'm gonna tell you why. Because if I'm gonna be a slack Muslim, then I'm gonna convert over and be a slack believer. Oh man. Understand this. This is why the Lord recruited Saul, because Saul was zealous even in his ignorance. He was disciplined. He was focused. He was goal oriented. He had a mission. He was mission minded. The Lord wanted to recruit Saul on his team because of his zeal. He saw his zeal while he was in a false institution, but he still wanted him. Why? Because of what was in him. And we think that the Lord is so desperate to save souls that as long as you claim Christ, whatever. No, he wants those who will do work for him, with him, and in the midst of his people. He don't want the worst of the worst, the slackest of the slackest, because he can't get any glory out of that. You know what I'm saying? He wants you to go for the sharks, go for the big ones making move. It don't really matter what they're serving or who, you know, if they got the Buddha, the Buddha set up, whatever it is. He don't care about that, but he's looking, do they have business acumen? Do they have leadership? Do they have the awareness that they're leaders? Do they influence people? Do they have some kind of zeal about them, some kind of identity? Do they at least know that when they speak things, they can make things happen? Do they at least know that where they are and the places that they go, it impacts other people? Do they at least know that they model out what others will do in following them? That's the kind of people I want to win over. I want to make fishers of men. I don't just want to get added increased numbers. You see, we think that he's so concerned with Lord. We think he's so concerned with getting people delivered from hell that priority is more important than him recruiting and employing people to produce glory for him. And let me ask you something. Now, he doesn't have to choose because he's limitless. But if he had to choose between one soul who produced glory and 10 souls that didn't produce anything, but they just proclaim his name, which one do you think he would choose? You think he's so desperate for numbers that he would choose the 10 just to say, I got 10 people saved? No, he's looking for quality. Because that quality one, once he captures that quality one's heart, that's going to be exponential growth. So now I'm saying to the prophetic people, put an extra weight, extra responsibility, put it where it's supposed to be, responsibility on the individuals of the institutions, and stop just generalizing it, religious. No, it's not just religious, because you can be religious in anything. In the most postmodern, the most new matrix church, in the most progressive church, you can still have religious people in it. So the spirit of religion can be anywhere. So saying religious in and of itself is really like a catchword for anything, So it's the institution itself is not what makes it religious. It's how people operate, how individuals function, how they move in it. If they're crystallizing their thinking, if they're crystallizing their mentality. Now, I will say this in saying all that, there's something to be said about forms. There's something to be said about patterns of worshiping. I understand about new wine and new wine skins and all that good stuff. But a lot of it, I've seen and heard of reports of people in dead religions like the Roman Catholic Church, where the Spirit begins to start pouring himself out in the midst of Catholics, and they start moving, Spirit-filled, moving in signs and wonders and flowing. So even though the institution is dead, the people there are alive. The people there are hungry for the things of God. So even in a dead institution, the Spirit can begin to move and resurrect, drive in the middle of it, because people have gathered themselves to say, we want to experience the Lord. We want to do his work. We want to move in his things, in his business. So don't focus so much on the institution. Focus on the people. And that's going to that's going to sharpen your prophetic eye as you begin to start addressing things. Now, let me say this. Now, with all that I said, it's going to sound like I'm contradicting right now, but I'm not. Because I started out saying that this is mainly dealing with novice prophets. Now, there are governmental prophets who are called to address systems and address institutions. See, the problem is prophetic people who don't have the grace, the government, the wisdom, the metron to understand that, try to attack an institution and don't do anything to it. It's like you're just hitting up against a brick wall. They don't have the grace, the authority, the power to address an institution, which is why I say don't focus on the institution, just focus on the individuals. Now, there is a weightier glory, and there are people who have the grace, the capacity, the wisdom, and the thorough ability to uproot the powers that uphold a dead institution. But that's a whole different story. So I'm not contradicting myself, but I'm talking about levels, and one of the things that we learn about anybody that's growing, grace and peace, how you doing? Anybody that's growing, we understand this, that there are levels. And, when we're young at something and new at something, we want to skip levels. We like to skip over into a level where we're not, we don't have the wisdom, the authority to handle it. And the Lord's like, no, you gotta deal with the level that you're on first. Don't try to uproot. Like back in the day, we tried to uproot the whole institution of hip hop. Now, I understand the evils within the demonic culture of hip hop. I'm not talking about music. I always have to say this to people because they don't understand what I'm saying. I'm not talking about music, rap. I'm talking about the cultures of hip hop, the culture, the demonic culture of hip hop. We tried to uproot the whole culture. And guess what? It didn't move anywhere. Why? Because we should have just been dealing with individuals who are in bondage to the spirits that are in hip-hop. But we didn't have the authority. We didn't have the placement even in our relationships. We didn't have the capacity. We didn't have the connections in terms of, you know, let's say if I was if I was working next to Russell Simmons, or if I was, you know, in Jay-Z's organization, or if I was in a place where I had some kind of credibility to really uproot and address the evils of hip-hop, that would be different. So prophets, just because you see something doesn't mean you have the authority to uproot the whole institution. So it could be a wasted effort. You could be spending a whole lot of time addressing something that's not budging because it's out of your authority. So we gotta crawl before we walk. And even if you skip crawling, you definitely gotta walk before you start running. You know, and we gotta run before we start flying with the eagles. So everything is based on glory to glory, faith to faith, glory to glory. Don't blame the institution, deal with the individuals. And if the Lord gives you a grace and authority that's big enough to handle institutions, then you're going to do it with wisdom. You're going to do it with grace. All right, I've been talking long enough. Grace and peace, good people. Check in. If you haven't, I appreciate y'all checking in with me, but if you have not liked the page or followed the page, go ahead and do that. Terrence Frederick Ministry page. And also, I have a book coming out. Actually, I have a book that's already out now that's free. One version of it is free, and it's called 12 Life Lessons. So if you look on the page, I'll have some things on for that. 12 Life Lessons. I have a few different authors, friends, talking about different things. Love is not sex, and breaking that down, and talking about how the church shouldn't be in competition with each other, but we should be completing one another, breaking that down. People even dealing with hardship of having to deal with abortion and other things. A lot of different things on there. So check it out. It's called 12 Life Lessons. It's also on Amazon for 99 cents. And I also have a book coming out called Wisdom Collections. And it's about almost 300 pages. But I'm breaking down about over 30 to 40 topics of different subjects. So how I'm reacting to the culture and bringing apostolic and prophetic insight to various things. So grace and peace, good people. I'll talk to you soon. Shalom, shalom.